The following is a special presentation of Tony Curry Radio. From hot dogs to cool kitties, this is Darkside of the Pooch.
Welcome back to Darkside of the Pooch. He is Dr. Reb Stewart, Rossbridge Animal Hospital in his orifice. I am Tony Curry, of course, home of Tony Curry Radio. So one of our longest running shows. I think you were you not our first show I think we ever did?
I might be. I might be the original show.
From the basement over at the other house, and I called you up and I said, man, I'm trying to start this thing and I just need some content. I need some shows. And you came up and you threw me a couple $100 and like, let's go. And from now on, and all of a sudden we've got an official sponsor with Ed's Pet World and Sasquatch Toys and Comics doing fantastic. And next thing you know, we got thousands of viewers and launchers every single week, and it's just been fantastic. So it's been great. I know you're super busy. Greatly appreciate you. Tell people quickly how they can get in touch with you.
Yeah, well, you can. Exciting news! Our website's being overhauled, so now we have a contact me button.
All right,
and so you can just hit that button.
Mm-hmm.
And it'll take you to a form and it gives us an email. But you can also call us at 208-0301, or you can email us, rossbridgeanimalhospital@gmail.com. You can still email us directly, and you can find us on Facebook.
Okay. I found this story, and we're pretty light on this show. We've talked baseball cards and we laugh a lot. We talk about the Bible and things like that. And normally before I start the show, I usually put in Google the word pets, and then I put in news. And something will come up, and this story came up today, and it's super sad. But it does have something to do with you, and I want to get your thoughts on it.
With me personally?
Well, yeah, it's about a veterinarian.
Oh wow!
So okay. a talented UK vet has killed himself with his surgery's animal euthanization drugs due to distress over rich owners callously putting down their pets to avoid paying for treatment. According to his mother, Dr. John Ellis, 35, was under considerable stress after having to kill pets just because their owners were unwilling to fork over for treatment until it was too late to save them, his mother said. He eventually killed himself by sneaking out of his office a dose of euthanization medication big enough to put down a large dog. The vet had shared his profound sadness over the animal's deaths, which he felt could have easily been prevented. His mom said he just found it destroying. He said, I've got somebody saying they won't pay to help their animal, yet they're sitting there in a brand new car outside. The vet from New Hampshire told his mother other people were just really struggling, would do anything to save their animals. Dr. Ellis told his family he was going to his office to pick up a package on November 6, 2022, and then told a nurse that he was going to pick up the medication to put down a friend's dog at home. Instead, he put himself down. To further this point, and this is why we don't just read headlines, but the inquest heard the vet also planned to dump his longtime partner, whom he'd be secretly cheating on, and that he'd been suffering from sleeping problems as well as money woes that left him sleeping in his car when he was on call. So there was other parts to the story, but the headline read, vet kills himself with euthanization drugs and distress of pet owners putting down their animals to save money. That may have been the straw that broke the camel, no pun intended. You are at the Rossbridge Animal Hospital. You are at a very nice place. It doesn't, just because you have a nice place doesn't mean it's very classy and it's top of the line. It doesn't mean it's more expensive. You just do great service and you're in a very nice part of town. You're at Rossbridge Animal Hospital. God has taken care of you and you've taken care of God, and that's why that worked out. So I can see where you perhaps have some owners of pets that perhaps are pretty well off. But you and I have discussed this. You don't have a lot of people that just say, well, now we've discussed, like, if something's going to cost $3,000 or $4,000. I had that situation several months ago. I decided to go ahead and put the money in. It laid me back a little bit. I gave it everything I got. Unfortunately, our little guy didn't make it. But how often does this happen to people? And have you ever had someone just leave their pet there?
No. And there are people that are in rural areas where, you may not have the ability to do the treatments or the diagnostics that you want to do, but there's some ways to balance that out. So, for example, if you are more rural, your rent may be less, or, the overhead for your mortgage or whatever for the land that you bought, so there's some trade-off there. usually your staff are their wages may be a little bit less. I mean, because let's just be honest, if you're in a more rural area, the going rate for certain things is less.
Yeah.
So, there are ways around that, but the things that you can't get around are the cost of goods sold, because the medication that you have to purchase to sell to someone else is going to be the same as what I purchase it for.
Sure.
If veterinary medicine has a pretty high suicide rate as it is.
Yeah.
It's up there with MDs and dentists and
For veterinarians?
Yeah. It's
Really?
it is. It's fairly high, and I think that for the most part, the articles that you read, it's because the job is stressful, and people, their pets are their life a lot of times, and sometimes they don't have the finances. And so that certainly can weigh on people. It's weighed on me before. Now, never to the point where I felt like I needed to, take my own life. Like, praise the Lord, I've never been there. But
Yeah.
I feel for people that are. But, and I don't want to give like a sob story or anything. Veterinary medicine is a great profession, but it can be stressful. You do have to deal with emotional people, and sometimes emotional people that don't have the money that they need to do the treatment that the pet needs. So, I mean, I sympathize with the guy. I have heard stories, and these are not fiction. I mean, I have heard of veterinarians that will take the euthanasia solution and they shoot it as a drug, and it basically makes them fall asleep.
Yeah.
And you can take very small amounts of it and it won't kill you. And I know veterinarians that they've done this, they've gotten caught, thankfully, and they've, had to address some things and go to rehab and that sort of thing. But I mean, I just can't imagine walking that line, and you're putting something in your body that is fatal, because of, a disease that you have. And that's scary. Sad.
Yeah, and again, the part that he was cheating on his longtime partner, certainly, I'm glad they put that in there, because that obviously, I think that plays into that he was going to break up with him or her, and the fact that he had evidently some wealthy customers who weren't willing to pay for their animals' rehabilitation means that he probably wasn't having them on the hook to pay their bills, which another way was he wasn't making any money. I mean, it's a lot easier to say, put him down, I'll just leave him there, as opposed to paying $1,000 to get my animal fixed.
Yeah. And I don't want to be callous, but hey, if that's the path everybody's taking, then raise the price to do that.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you're not making any money if you're not sitting there performing anything, but yeah, if it's going to cost you something, say, okay, well, it's probably going to cost me more to put your animal down than it is to have it fix. So, listen, I know there's some cases where, we mentioned this back in the day, we lived in a rural part of town, and I don't think we had dogs our entire lives. They all lived to be 13, 14, 15 years old. I don't think we ever went to a vet once. The only time I think we considered doing that was when it affected our lives. And that's we had a flea infestation or something along those lines. One of the times my dog bit into an electrical line, and it just, it charted all over itself. And we didn't take it to the vet. Another one of our dogs got hit by a car up in State Route 42, and he came down and had a limp the rest of his life. I mean, it was just one of those things where we loved our animals. I mean, it was the best thing. And then, of course, I went to summer camp, came home, and one of our dogs would be gone. And what happened? And he passed away, so I never really knew what my mom and dad were doing. And I loved our animals. But it's a responsibility. Would you say, though, and we've gone over the numbers and what it costs to maintain an animal. I want to say it was somewhere in the $3,000 to $4,000 a year range, which sounds about right. But in most cases, from a preventative, as long as they're getting their heartworm stuff and their flea stuff, and they're going in for their 6-month checkup, it's not overly expensive, and chances are you can catch things before it gets out of control. Correct?
Yeah, I mean. The year's worth of heartworm prevention, depending on the size of the dog, it might cost you $150, maybe. The flea and tick prevention is more expensive. It might cost you $250.
Yeah.
See the vet twice a year. I mean, yeah, I mean, just vet bills is, I mean, shouldn't be much more than about $800 or $900, and that's probably overshooting it. You know, I mean,
Yeah.
so yeah.
Yeah, and the other thing, it's funny, and I'm guilty of this because I don't always bring my animals right in. When you guys will notify me and let me know, hey, listen, so and so is due for an update or whatever like that, and then I'll go to try to get him a haircut, and they're like, no, this dog doesn't have, like last time I went, the dog needed a flu shot. They had to have a flu shot, or else they weren't going to cut it. I said, what? My dog has to have a flu shot, and they're like, yeah, we will not cut the hair unless your dog has a flu shot. And I said, okay, so we had that taken care of and moved on. So unfortunate news, and I don't ever look at it that way because it's an animal, it's not a human. But I also understand how important you said that animals are humans' lives sometimes, and so I really never thought of that. So I'll say a secret prayer for veterinarians everywhere. I never knew that you guys were under that kind of stress.
Yeah, I mean, and it's hard to put into words because no one, you know, people aren't just clamoring to bring their animal to the vet. You know, it's not a place you normally want to be. Number one. Number two, it's not a place you normally want to spend a lot of money, and veterinarians are very aware of that.
Yeah.
And you know, we're just like anybody else. We want to provide a service, and we want to provide a good service. We're just like anybody else that's working. You know, we want to make our customers happy. And you know, sometimes, especially if you get to a point where you can't fix an animal or an animal becomes terminal, knowing that we can't do what ideally our job is, you know, that weighs heavy. You know, it really does.
So I got to dinner last night to Texas Roadhouse, down there off of 119. You know where that is? This Texas Roadhouse place.
Yeah.
It's amazing because every time I go, there's a Cracker Barrel right there, and every time I go there, it's like a 3-hour wait. I've never seen a place like we got there at 4:30 yesterday. I got there extra early, and it was like an hour wait at 4:30. I was like, really, fourth on a Sunday? It was crazy, but it's well worth it. It's a really nice restaurant. They should buy advertising on Tony Curry Radio. So we're leaving the parking lot, and I see a cat, and I said, "Ooh, a cat!" It was a beautiful cat. It had some brown on its face, and it was black and white. It was gorgeous. They come running across the street, and it was running through the parking lot of the Texas Roadhouse. And of course, my daughter, you know, she wants to get out and go save this cat. And I said, no, we're not saving the cat. And she said, Dad, it's going to get killed. And I said, Lila Jane, it probably lives here. I said, I've looked at the back enough restaurants, and I've seen cats, and I've seen Lady and the Tramp enough times to know that if a cat's around there, someone's probably feeding it. And it's probably living a pretty damn good life outside the Texas Roadhouse. I'm just saying. I said, that cat probably doesn't want to be caught. And it looked like it was pretty spry, and it was in good shape. I mean, it looked like a nice cat. Am I too far out there? Because she's like, seriously? I said, yeah. I said, I think sometimes we try to save things that don't want saving. I mean, of all things, cats are the one things that can adapt best to anything. And all they got to do is find someone that's willing to put a hand out. There's a restaurant on Highway 280 that feeds like 6 or 7 cats in a dumpster area, and they just put food out every morning for it. And those cats are going to keep coming back. They're never going to go home. So let them be.
Feral cats are, they don't know any better, and you can't teach them any better, you know, especially if, you know, cats can really take care of themselves if they're outside in the restaurant, like you said, but you know, cats can hunt. You know, cats can take care of themselves. They're very resourceful. They're very smart. They're very tough, very, just prone to living. You know, like the phrase, they have 9 lives, it's there for a reason. Now, you know, if you could, okay, think about it like this. There are people that can reason, and they still want to live on the streets.
Mm-hmm.
There really are. And I'm not even talking about drugs.
No.
I'm just, there are communities of people, and they would rather live on the street. So if there are people that would rather live on the street, cats are going to be, you know, cats are the same way. If you could say, hey, listen, you could come with me. You're never going to have to fight for food. You're always going to have a warm place to sleep. You're never going to have to worry about getting eaten by something else. Well, sure, the cat would come in, but you can't do that. Like the feral cat is perfectly happy doing its thing.
Oh yeah. I totally agree with it. And in a long ways, like Lady and the Tramp, it's kind of a sexy, sentimental, kind of beautiful thing. I mean, I looked at that cat and I thought that cat's got it pretty good.
It's freedom.
I mean, it is freedom. I mean, it really is. And it can do whatever it wants. And, you know, it's not all about belly rubs and stuff. I don't know. 208.
Can you imagine if you were like as a person and you were as resourceful as a cat?
Oh man.
I think a lot of people would choose to kind of be on the lam, you know?
Well, yeah, but the only difference is between humans and animals is like, and I guess dogs are a little bit more than humans, but cats look like they can live alone. I don't think dogs can live alone. I think dogs need human intervention. They need to be around something else, or maybe even another dog. And humans, you know, I've watched that Alone show enough on the Discovery Channel, wherever it is. And I watched it for the first couple of years, and now it's just it's almost depressing to watch, because the thing that gets to everybody is the alone part. It's not the food. It's not trying to get shelter or start a fire. They can't handle being alone for more than 30 days. They go crazy. They go nuts because they have to talk to somebody. They have to share some ideas with. So, but cats, I don't know.
Yeah, they're a different animal.
They really are. And that's why they're amazing. That's why amazing animals. 208-0301, 208-0301. Rossbridge Animal Hospital, Darkside, the Pooch, brought to you by Sasquatch Toys and Comics down there on Citation Lane in beautiful Hoover. And, of course, the fine folks down there in Homewood, Ed's Pet World. Seth and those guys do a wonderful job. Info at TonyCurryRadio.net. Lydia from Northport wants to know, why do some cats have 6 toes? We haven't had this question in quite some time, so I thought I'd bring it back up again. Why do some cat, and some people are like, what, 6 toes? What are you talking about? It's a real thing.
It's just genetics. I mean, it's just for whatever reason, when their bodies were forming, their DNA told them to have extra toes. And you can see it. It can be like run in family lines. Mm-hmm. So, you know, cats that are related tend to have it. It's breed specific in some dogs. Great Pyrenees, it's a breed standard to have double dew claws on all their feet. You know, they have 6 toes on every foot. And if they don't, then there's a decent chance they're not a purebred Pyrenees. So if we don't just see it in cats, we see it in dogs. It's not, there's no cat where it's a breed standard. I mean, it's a mutation, and not necessarily a bad mutation. Just means that you got to clip more toenails.
There you go. Stuart in Inverness, wants to know, he's got a cat. He's like, he's got a cat that doesn't want to be touched. He's got a cat he wants to touch. He said he's had the cat for about a year. He wrote this really long email. It was kind of funny. I should read it, but he's like, I'm doing everything I can to try to warm this cat up to me, and the thing just doesn't want to have anything to do with me. Is there anything I can change about this cat? He was hoping to have a lap cat, and now he's got this cat that obviously doesn't want to be anywhere near him. Is there something he can do? Catnip on the back of the head or something, or what are we doing here?
Did he say what the cat does when he tries to hold it?
It just, I mean, he said it won't even let him hold it. You know, he'll sit there and it'll walk up across the thing, and the minute he puts his hand out to touch it, it takes off.
Yeah. Well, it's a pretty common thing for owners to ask, because it's one thing if a cat comes to you. If a cat comes to you, sits by you, wants to cuddle with you, you know, that's most cats. But also most cats, if you pick them up and if you put them in your lap, they're not going to stay there. So that's most cats in general. So when you get a cat, I think that you have to understand that the cat is in control. And when the cat wants affection or hang out with you, it's up to the cat. It's not up to you. So it's really common. I mean, I guess if he wanted to do anything, he could, be sure that the cat's not, uncomfortable for some medical reason. And then if the cat's just really stressed or anxious, you could put it on anti-anxiety medication. But have a lot of treats, I mean, I'm sure he's tried that. But honestly, if you want something to sit in your lap and be calm and look for affection, probably want to get a dog.
Steve in Northport as well. Are rescue cats harder to reform than rescue dogs?
Oh man. Okay. I think rescue cats will leave you alone more and will cause less trouble. But it's just like in our last email, they may not give you that bond that you want, you know?
Mhm.
Rescue cats are not going to be, in my opinion, very aggressive.
Yep.
They're just going to, maybe be averse to hanging out with you.
Yep.
They may be recluses. Whereas if you rescue a dog, they can certainly have more behavioral problems. They can have separation anxiety, which cats generally don't have. They can be aggressive either to you or your kids or your guests. And again, cats don't really do that. Cats are more of a flight animal as long as they have a place to go.
Mhm.
But I think that the upside to a rescue dog is, I think they have a high ceiling, but I also think they have a very low floor.
Yep. Yep.
And cats are probably the opposite. They have probably a higher floor, but a lower ceiling.
There you go. That's a good answer. 208-0301, info at TonyCurryRadio.net. Carol wants to know, would you please go over a list of things you can and cannot feed your dog and or cat over the holiday seasons, poinsettias, etc. I know that you don't want to feed your animal poinsettias, but I also know they're dangerous. I read something the other day, and I did not realize it, but dogs can't have grapes, correct?
Yeah.
I,
Yeah.
I did not know. I had heard something about raisins, but I've given my dog grapes before, and I never even thought of it. I know they can't have chocolate. I know there's certain
Yeah.
things that they, for the most part, if you have to ask, you probably just don't want to feed it to them. But I know some people will feed their dog anything.
Yeah.
But grapes is one of those things. Anything else we're missing over the holidays? Perhaps we need to be careful about.
Um, it's a little bit easier. We'll start with food, and this is definitely not an all-encompassing list.
Mhm.
And we're things like herbicides and pesticides and antifreeze, stuff like that. I think that's kind of very common sense. Like don't
Sure.
feed your pet liquid chemicals.
Yeah.
Um, but grapes and raisins and chocolate, milk chocolate or dark chocolate. Dark chocolate is worse, but then the baking chocolate is the worst. It's the absolute worst.
Okay.
So don't do that.
Just a little bit would kill them. I mean,
Oh, well, if you use that baking chocolate,
yeah.
it doesn't take a whole lot, especially for a small dog.
Wow. Okay.
They can eat. I mean, a big dog can eat a decent amount of milk chocolate and not have any problems.
Yeah.
One that a lot of people don't know about are onions and garlic.
Really?
Onions and garlic will cause oxidative anemia. So basically, their red blood cells don't like that, and so they'll become anemic. So
Okay.
onions and garlic are some that a lot of people don't know. Cats. Another super important one that I get all the time is sugarless gum, like gum with xylitol.
Yeah.
That's really crazy what that does. It basically makes their blood glucose go really low, and so they can have seizures,
Wow.
go into comas. I've got this one friend. Once every couple months, he's like, "Hey, my dog got into X amount of sugarless gum. What do I do?"
Right.
Yeah. Uh, so
Okay.
that's a big one. Cats, it's a lot of plants. Like I guess because cats are a little more curious, but like you said, poinsettias, not great. Lilies are very toxic to cats.
Okay.
So,
Do you know what loves raisins?
oh, is it your gizmo?
Chinchillas, man. That gizmo will go through, and I mean, it gives me the craps just watching how many raisins that thing will eat. It will eat a handful of. It loves raisins, and they're healthy for it too. They loves it. It keeps them
Yeah.
regular. All right, final question. So I mentioned with Texas Roadhouse, I got a bone-in ribeye last night, and I like
That's
to.
the best. That's the best cut, by the
I know,
way.
I
I
know,
mean, it's the
I know.
best.
It's a 20 ounce, and it was, I like the bone because I like chewing the bone. I mean, I'll pick up with the bone at the
You're telling the
table. I
bone,
don't
man.
care. I'm telling the bone, and so I'm sitting there. So I thought, boy, I bet your Rainer dog would love to chew on this bone. So I took it home, and I left some meat on it for it, and I didn't give him the bone, but I held it for him, so he could chew on it. And
Oh
he's like,
yeah.
dude, he was loving it, and I would not let him go because I know that if I let it go, it's cooked. He could bite into it and it could splinter. But I did think to myself, man, I would love to give my boy a bone if I could. And I know you're an anti-bone kind of guy, but if I wanted to give my dog like the best for Christmas, the best bone he could have, that would be the safest thing I could give him as far as in a bone. What kind of bone would I give him?
Oh man.
Because I miss seeing my dog. It's like giving your kid their first computer. You give it to him, and you don't see him for like 4 hours. It's great.
Go get the massive like cow femurs that they have at Publix. You've seen those?
Yeah. I mean, but it needs to be raw, right?
No, go get him one of those. No, they're not manufactured. They're actual cow femurs, but I don't know what they do to them. But that thing's big enough where he's not going to swallow it. The biggest problem with bones is that they can crack their teeth on them, you know. But if you come to grips with that and you're cool with that, then get him the biggest bone you can find. And
like they got bones that they're almost like 3 feet long.
Yeah, the things at Publix are as like big as my femur.
Yeah, I mean,
so you don't really want them to chew them up and swallow them because it could upset their stomach. And they're not going to die from it, but they're going to throw up and they're not going to eat and they're going to act sick and you're going to think something's terribly wrong and you rush them into the vet. When bones are digestible, the stomach acid will break them down, but it's going to cause problems from the moment they swallow it until it comes out their backside.
Yeah.
So get them the biggest bone you can find and take it away before he breaks it up and swallows it.
Okay, that's what I'll do for Christmas. I'll go to my local Publix and ask for a femur bone.
Do you not know what I'm talking about?
No, I know what you mean.
They're at the pet aisle. Like you don't have to go to the meat section and be like, "Hey, throw me a femur."
Yeah. Well, but the bones I see that are wrapped up in the plastic, they don't have anything on them. Like they have some of that bone marrow crap that put in the middle in there. That's fine. But I just like to get a nice bone that my dog could just, and he growls when I get near him when he's biting on it. That kind of dog.
Oh, so you're not talking about but you're talking, you want meat on the bone. That's what you want.
Yeah. I want my dog to have some meat on the bone. I mean, I saw him get after that steak and it was hard for me not to just let him have the whole thing. Cause I was like, man, he'd take this thing outside and he would tear into it. And he was so happy. His tail was just wagging like he was having a seizure or something. It was awesome.
You need the thing that Fred Flintstone ordered at the drive-thru.
The rack of ribs.
Car. Yeah. You need the dinosaur ribs.
I'll bet you Dino ate pretty good. All right, man. Tell people how they can find you.
You can email us, rossbridgeanimalhospital@gmail.com, or you can go to our website and click the contact me button. Or you can give us a call, 208-0301.
Hey, seriously, if you ever think of shooting up some euthanization drugs, will you please call me ahead of time? Will you talk it out with me? You promise?
I will call you. Hey, but here, my parting shot would be this: 90% of the veterinarians out there are very compassionate and caring, and they not only care about your pet, but they care about you, and your bond with your animal. And when you go into a veterinary practice, tensions run high and bills run high, and that can cause some serious trouble. But just remember that the person in the white coat or scrubs or whatever, if something's not working or going south, I can promise you that it will upset them more than it upsets you. And that is hard to comprehend, but It's true.
Okay, good. You got a good heart, my man. Hey, I appreciate you. Next time we talk will be the week of Thanksgiving, so we'll see if we can knock something out, okay?
All right, man. I'll have some turkey bones.
Thank you, brother. Are those okay? No, the turkey bones are bad. I can't give the dog the carcass. Just give him the whole carcass and let him get after it.
Just let the dog jump up on the table and eat the whole dinner.
There you have it. Thank you, my friend. I appreciate you.
This has been a special presentation of Tony Curry Radio.